Everyone Saranai?
Everyone Saranai Hante.
Yes, I hope you all can hear me.
Yes, Bante.
Okay. Let's start our session today. First of all, let's pay homage to the Supreme Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. May the Noble Tripartite bless you all. Today we are going to start yet another discussion on Four Noble Fruits. So we have discussed the first two Noble Fruits so far. So today we have to discuss the third Noble Truths, the cessation of suffering, the Noble Truth of the cessation of suffering. So today we start from the page 126, the book of the Four Noble Truths. Let's see what it says. The cessation of suffering, dukkha nirodha satya. Katamancha bhikkhave dukkha nirodham arya satcham. Yo tassa eva tanhaya asesa viraga nirodho chago patinissaggo mutti analyo. Idang uchchati bhikkhave dukkha nirodham arya satcham. The Exalted One has thus discoursed on the third noble truth, the cessation of suffering, as follows. Bhikkhus, what is the noble truth of cessation of suffering? If there is complete, without sediment, eradication of craving, impulses due to treading on the noble path. If something is done in the way of totally destroying craving, if there is shattering of craving, so that it shall not resurface or manifest, if there is no attachment or bonding with craving, because this is I call noble truth, the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. So in this discourse, it explains based on the eradication of the craving. We have discussed before, the craving is a root cause or the origin of all the suffering. So what we have to do is eradicate or eliminate the root cause, which means the craving. So here it explains complete eradication of craving is called the nirvana or the supreme bliss. It has been pointed out in the discourse that the deracination, uprooting of craving, which is a cause of suffering, so that it shall never reborn or re-emerge, niravasesa nirodha, as the truth of the cessation of suffering, dukkha nirodha satya. The shattering of already born mental formation or activities, sanskara, is also termed nirodha or cessation. As craving is one of the sanskaras, is to undergo cessation along with the sanskaras. However, here, nirodha is not intended to be as such, but cessation, nirodha of all forms of craving that are to be born. The cessation is expressed in several synonyms terms: niravashesha nirodha, anutpada nirodha, niravasesa prahana. If one is non-attached, without craving to one's wealth, family, body, objects of senses, such as forms and sound, and if one can be free of sensual desire, despite staying with the goddess like a nymph on the same bed, the state of non-craving, the one enjoys, should be considered as Niravasesa Nirodha. So in this chapter, it explains that we all know this, the Sankata, whatever arises due to conditions, cease. That's the nature of the conditioned things. That is also called Nirodha. That if we look at our past, the skandhas, the aggregates we had in our past, even in this life, they are ceased. It is also can be said as Nirodha. But here, the Nirodha Satya, it is a bit different. What here ceases or eliminates is the suffering to be born or to be arisen in the future, or the suffering to be arisen in the future. That's what here the Nirodha means. The cessation is expressed in several synonymous terms. The Niravasesha Nirodha. Here the Niravasesha Nirodha means the craving eradicating without remaining. So when you eliminate the craving, then the karma is not going to produce the future results. Then Anuppada Nirodha, it's also a synonym for nirvana. What does here mean? Anuppada Nirodha means when you eliminate the craving, which means the suffering which was supposed to arise in the future is also going to eliminate or cease. Since the root cause is eliminated, then there is no future suffering. That's what you call Anuppada Nirodha. And that's what happened when someone enters into the nirvana. We have already discussed so far, as I remember, maybe in another discussions, what happens when you attain the higher spiritual stages. For example, when you become Sotapanna, only suffering remain maximum for 7 future births. After births, or even more than 7 births, is eliminated or cease when you eradicate craving. That's what it means here, the Anuppada Nirodha. The suffering is eliminated before arising. Niravasesa Prahana is also Niravasesa Nirodha, same meaning. If one is non-attached without craving, one's wealth, family, body objects, yes. So when someone eliminates the craving, so there's no attachment with these sensual pleasures. So as this explains in this text, it says someone can even sleep in a single bed even with a goddess or nymph, like nymph means here Divya Apsara in Sinhalese. So without arising craving, those noble ones can stay. When they eliminate the craving, that's what you call Niravasesa Nirodha. No remain craving. A being would not have totally escaped from suffering unless the 5 skandhas extinguished, although the being has freed himself from craving. If the 5 aggregates dissociate with craving remaining, which relatively forms a small part, suffering would not be poignant. We know that when someone realizes the nirvana, but still the skandhas there, the aggregates is there, so still there is suffering. That's why in maybe Bojjhanga Sutra that you might have heard or read, the Arahantas explain the excruciating pain they suffer when they have some illnesses. But relatively, that suffering is pretty much less since that they can remain without getting disturbed because of their realization. What the person oppressed with the suffering needs is the relief from five skandhas based suffering. The Blessed One pivoted his sermons on the theme of craving. In spite of on defilements and aggregates for the purpose of indicating the way leading to the cessation of suffering simultaneously with the truth of cessation of suffering, Nirodha Satya. For when the craving-based cause of suffering exists, its effect or fruit suffering cannot be dissociated. Even if some smidgen, tiny of suffering is affected with great effort on the part of oneself, that very suffering resurfaces because the cause of the smidgen of suffering does exist. On the whole, suffering ceases entirely, eternally, if its cause craving is eliminated. Therefore, the unmistakable way of terminating suffering is the putting an end to craving, the cause of suffering. So that's the most important thing to reach the nirvana, eliminate the root cause of suffering, which means the craving. When the cessation of suffering is explained and elaborated in terms of the cessation of craving, it amounts to an explication of the way leading to the cessation of suffering, along with the cessation of suffering. Dukkha Nirodha Arya Satya. When a fertile tree is cut and destroyed, the seeds that are to give rise to another tree also get eliminated. For seeds are also a part and parcel of the destroyed tree. Destruction of the seeds is inseparable from that of the tree. Even so, with the cessation of craving, there gets terminated the whole mass of suffering. The suffering of dukkha is tied on to craving and is inseparable from it, just as much as seeds to the aforesaid tree. Thereby it should be known that rooting out of craving not only eliminates craving, but the whole lot of suffering as well. And this is but Nirodha Satya. Did you understand the simile?
Yes, Bante. Bante, here when we are talking of eliminating craving, that is not the same as suppressing
Please, Mahinda repeat.
Bante, when we talk of eliminating craving, that is not the same as suppressing the craving, is it? Because typically what we tend to do is try to suppress our craving.
Yeah, the craving that we can only suppress by attaining jhanas. Right?
But Bante, in our lay life, if we don't give in to some temptation, isn't that a form of suppression or control?
We can say sort of control, but not suppression. Suppression only that we can do in the state of jhanas. In the jhanas, there's no defilements at all. They are suppressed. But here the simile explains about the tree. What happened when you cut a tree? Destroys the or uprooting a tree, two things happen. You uproot the tree, which means the tree is not going to grow no more, and when you cut down the tree, something else also going to destroy. That
the
is
seeds.
the
Yeah.
seeds which have the ability to grow more trees. Same like when you eliminate craving. Yes, you terminate craving, and you eliminate the suffering, the future suffering yet to be arisen. That's the two things happen.
Bhante, so what as just unknown people who are not advanced, what we can try to do is control our craving.
Yes.
So that is it not a beneficial thing?
No, it's absolutely, it's beneficial. But what here we discuss is the Nirodha Satya, which means the eliminating the craving entirely. Entirely terminating the craving, which is a root cause. And when you eliminate the craving, when you terminate the craving, then you eliminate the future suffering yet to be born. Because if you have the craving, you are bound to face the future suffering.
Yes, that is clear, Bhante. So if we control, does controlling the craving ultimately lead to the cessation?
Yes, of course. Yes, that's what we are supposed to do when you practice the Eightfold Path. We control sort of defilements, and we instead we generate wholesome qualities, wholesome abilities with the path factors. That's what happens when you perform any meritorious deed with having good understanding. When you perform meritorious deeds, which means you develop the path factors, the maggangas, right view, right thoughts, right speech, and so forth and so on. You develop, and when you refrain from the unwholesome activities like killing or lying or whatever, so you develop some certain ability, some certain strength in the path factors. Abstinence that we've learned, virati. So when you practice, when you develop these path factors, one day that they will lead to total termination of craving. That's what we are supposed to do.
Clear, Bhante. Thank you.
Yes, okay. So what here explains with the tree, simile of the tree, is about eliminating the future suffering with terminating the root cause, which means the craving. Nirvana. So we have to keep it in our mind that as long as we have the root cause, which means craving, we are bound to the future suffering. Yet unarisen, but we can consider as arisen because just we have the root causes. Unless you eliminate or eradicate root cause, you are supposed to face the future suffering. Nirvana. The Nirvana, the summum bonum of Buddhism, which Buddhists wish and strive to attain in here or there. It is this very dukkha nirodhara satya. Nirvana, as some are bound to think, is not a valueless, devoid, or of pleasure, should not be wished for a fearsome empty thing, but an extremely subtle, sublime form of pleasure, value of which cannot be adequately expressed in worldly terms. It is a happiness unborn, unboring, non-senile, undestructible, and eternally pervading. It is a thing unmixed with dukkha or suffering. As it is beyond cognizance of the five senses and the mind of the normal people, it is a principle extremely subtle. It is a concept so huge and gigantic when it considered in terms of the disintegration of suffering. A supramundane concept, a magnificent concept. It is also a concept non-positionable, although not a single being resides in it. Yet it is the greatest refuge for all the beings. So here explains several things. So nirvana is the greatest bliss, or the supreme bliss, which is being taught in the Buddhist teachings, and it is totally different from the sensual pleasures. And it is the huge when it considered with the suffering, when the suffering is terminated, when you compare the suffering and the bliss of the nirvana, it is huge, because if someone is not eliminated the craving, that he is supposed to get the births ad infinitum, millions or billions of lives that he is supposed to be born, maybe mean as humans or devas or as animals or in any woeful states. He is supposed to be born. He is bound to be born. So with that compare, when you compare like that, it is huge, the nirvana, and it is ultimate state. When we learn Abhidhamma, there are 4 ultimate realities. The nirvana is one of the ultimate realities, and it is totally subjective experience. No one can express it to someone else, that we have to experience by ourselves. Yes. In nirvana, there is nothing that is a part of the skandhas. If this is so, it is mere empty thing. It is not a negative quality of nirvana, but a very positive quality. On the whole, even if vijnana, consciousness, is present in nirvana, it becomes full with suffering. As vijnana too is but suffering, though nirvana is devoid of skandhas, yet it is not devoid of happiness. In order to appreciate the happiness permeating or spread through in nirvana, the different types of happiness should be understood. So here it says, in the nirvana, there is no anything conditioned, skandhas, no any aggregates, no consciousness. There's nothing compared to these things. But still it is a great bliss. So someone may think, if there is no vijnana, no consciousness, how it can be a bliss or happiness. So in order to understand that, we have to understand the different types of happinesses. So the two types of happiness. There are two types of happiness in the world, Kama Sukha and Vimukti Sukha. When Sukha stands for happiness, where Sukha stands for happiness, the happiness which obtains owing to objects of senses such as forms, sounds, smell, taste, tactile objects, and conscious apprehensions is termed Kama Sukha. We know that Kama Sukha, which is called sensual pleasure as well, to express in different words the pleasure that arises in the mind due to sensual objects such as gold, silver, pearls, precious stones, money, and attachment to one's family and friends is categorized Kama Sukha. So when we get pleasure with sensual objects, that is called Kama Sukha. Getting freed from calamities and misfortunes that one have and will have too is known as Vimukti Sukha. So enjoying senses or the sensual pleasures is Kama Sukha. And the Vimukti Sukha is getting freed or getting liberation from the calamities or the misfortunes or the disasters is called Vimukti Sukha. Out of these two happiness or pleasures, Kama Sukha is tangible. Therefore, it is so called Vedaita Sukha as well. Something to be felt. Vimukti Sukha is intangible, though everybody agrees with the fact that both are of happiness comprise. Yet, while speaking of Vimukti Sukha, instead of using the word happiness, some other words are substituted which cannot suggest the same meaning. Hence, a person's mind leans upon Vedaita Sukha whenever he hears a word happiness, consequent upon which Vimukti Sukha is neglected. It does not occur to his conscience that there is another type of happiness. So, normal people, the Putujjanas, when they hear Sukha or happiness, they only understand about Kama Sukha or the sensual pleasures. They totally neglect the Vimukti Sukha. Not a mode of Vedaita Sukha is present in Nirvana. So in the Nirvana, there's no even very small amount of Vedaita Sukha. Sheer Vimukti Sukha itself is Nirvana. The liberation from the suffering is itself is Nirvana. The person gets disappointed whenever he hears Vimukti. As happiness as he is not accustomed to the fact that Vimukti is happiness. He does not discern this fact. Else, when he hears of Nirvana, he mistake it to be Vedaita Sukha as well. To apprehend Nirvana as a form of happiness, one must discern well Vimukti as a form of happiness. So here again it explains when a normal person who does not have understanding about the teachings of the Supreme Buddha, whenever he hears the word Sukha, only he understands about the Kama Sukha, the Vedaita Sukha. The Vedaita Sukha means the happiness we get through by knowing. So the Nirvana or Nirvana Sukha is a sort of happiness where there is no consciousness or no feelings or something like that. That's what you call Vimukti Sukha, getting freed from all the suffering. So to apprehend the nirvana as a form of happiness, one must discern well the vimukti as form of happiness. So in some certain other discourses, the Buddha has explained that the Putujjanas, they do not know happiness than the sensual pleasures. So that's why the uninstructed, the worldlings, they always find to have sensual pleasures. To have a headache is a kind of suffering. After such a sufferer cures himself by taking medicine, he utters, I convalesced, I've recovered, released, or liberated from the headache, or simply I got well. The three words, convalesced, which means recovered, released, and got well, cannot not three different meanings, but per contra one. That one meaning is happiness. This happiness is the vimukti, or the liberation from the headache. However, word other than vimukti is used in expressing happiness with the result that vimukti is upheld unwittingly as happiness, though not comprehended as such. This confusion is brought about by the usage of manifold words denotationally. When these facts are carefully considered and thought out, it will be seen that vimukti is also a happiness or bliss. Between the two types of happiness, Kamasukha is that which arises with the mind when it apprehends a pleasurable object, and is as momentary as flash of lightning. It Kamasukha does not last even time interval occupied by a batting of an eyelid. Because of its high degree of momentariness, it is void of any value. As it is related to the skandhas, its pleasure is of an organismic nature, whereas vimukti sukha is not something that goes off in a flash, nor is it momentary even a minor degree. So here it explains the kama sukha is very, very momentary. It does not long last even within a fraction of seconds. But vimukti sukha is completely opposite. Vimukti after a headache lasts only till another headache arises. Vimukti obtained upon attaining nirvana is eternal and everlasting. So compared to headache, when you get cured by headache, it lasts until a new headache. Vimukti obtained upon attaining nirvana is eternal and everlasting. When you terminate or eliminate, eradicate the cravings, there's no way to reappear the craving, which means the bliss, the nirvanic bliss is eternal. When considered in terms of properties such as lastingness, vimukti sukha is by far better and highly valued. Upon repeated concurrence of a particular kama sukha, one gets bored of it, but this quality is not shared by vimukti sukha. It is for ever relishing. Rejection of vimukti sukha is tantamount to clasping misery and suffering. As nobody likes suffering, vimukti sukha never gets boring. So the kama sukha, in order to maintain kama sukha, one has to do so many things. I think we discussed before something like sankhata, dukkha, in order to maintain our lives that one has to do many things. But when it comes to the Vimukti Sukha, the Nibbanic bliss, there's nothing to do to maintain that Nirvanic or Nibbanic bliss. That is one of the qualities of the Vimukti Sukha. In ancient India, in the city of Saketa, a minister's wife contracted a headache, and 7 years passed away without the headache being cured. After the 7th year, a physician named Jivaka cured it. The wife, being released of the misery of headache, gave the physician money amounting to 4,000. So also her son and daughter-in-law donated the physician the 4,000 each. Her husband too, being happy, gave the physician 4,000 gold coins. Slave man and woman, and also a horse-driven chariot. If the relief acquired by the wife from the terrible headache is of a minor importance and of no value, she and her kinsman wouldn't have conferred the physician with such great wealth. 16,000 gold coins were lavished on the physician because the vimukti that achieved was overwhelming. From this, it can be concluded that the getting cured of a headache is worth 16,000 gold coins. A wealthy person in the city of Rajagaha suffered from an excruciating headache. After successful treatment by several physicians, he finally summoned the physician Jivaka, the very famous physician who lived in the Buddha's time. Jivaka, after having diagnosed the disease, asked the wealthy gentleman that if he cured the disease, with what would he be rewarded? Then the wealthy gentleman replied, "Honorable physician, if you cured me of this disease, I would give you all my wealth, and myself would become your slave." The wealthy gentleman said so because the relief from disease is so greater again than all his wealth. Considering multifarious and manifold suffering experienced by beings inhabiting this world, a headache is something that is not insignificant. That is something that is insignificant. There are sufferings exceedingly more painful than a headache. If relief from such a headache is greater than the whole of one's wealth, how much greater could be relief of overcoming much greater suffering than that? Amid sensual pleasures, there are no as great and as worthy pleasures. Some make great sacrifices for sensual pleasures, not because they are any worthy, but because of delusion, solely propelled by delusion. So here it explains about the Vimukti Sukha. When someone is getting freed from a disease, it is sort of also Vimukti Sukha, getting freed from a disease. But when it compared to the suffering, when someone eliminate, it is a huge pleasure that is called the Vimukti Sukha. Getting freed from the sansaric suffering is itself a huge happiness or sukha, that is called Vimukti Sukha. He explains some people make great sacrifices for sensual pleasures. It is not just because of worth it, it's because of delusion. They do not understand the exact nature of what they are perceiving. the supremacy of nirvana. The nirvana is rid of sensual pleasure. Not a single sensual object can be found in it. Nirvana in itself is vimukti sukha. Thus it can in no way be quantified. It is talked of as a refuge for worldly beings only in a conventional sense. So too, the value of nirvana lies. Vimukti sukha can never be compounded. If a deadly disease which can kill one in a matter of few days is caught by one and there is a physician who can cure him of the disease, one desiring to live would freely give whatever or she possesses to the physician in order to get oneself cured and thereby would get vimukti, release from death. If the patient happens to be a wealthy gentleman, and if the physician who is capable of effecting a cure says that unless the wealthy gentleman gives him the whole of his wealth, he cannot cure him, the wealthy gentleman will, without whatsoever stint, give the physician all his wealth and get himself lifted up from mouth of death. After having himself cured from a disease, from these facts it can safely be inferred that escape from a single death is as worth as whole wealth is very wealthy gentleman possesses. If a person exists without nirvana in the future and in various other lives, he has to face not only 100,000 million or billion deaths, but a number of deaths ad infinitum. If relief from a single death is a worth as a kingdom, how much more would nirvana be worth, which liberate the one from an infinite number of deaths? How can one determine its worth in any way? So to speak, even giving a single death a value of 1 cent, still the value of nirvana cannot be compounded. By reaching nirvana, one not only eliminates the suffering of death, but of all other forms of suffering that there be in the universe. Can one even reckon the value of the expiration of the suffering incumbent upon death? No, impossible. So here it explains the greatness of the vimukti sukha or the nirvana. So if, as we discuss, if someone is do not eradicate the craving or the root cause, he is supposed to get future births ad infinitum. There's no limit. As long as there is the root cause, the craving, you're supposed to get rebirths, probably even millions or even billions and billions of times. You're supposed to get the rebirth as long as you have the craving. So when you attain nirvana, or when you eliminate the craving, the root cause, then you get free from the future suffering which you were born to face in the future. But that the freedom or the liberation is itself is the highest, the bliss, which is called nibbana sukha or the vimukti sukha. The scope of nirvana. Although the conception of nirvana is very subtle, yet it's of the greatest enormity. Examples are not abounding to show its enormity. Its enormity can be stated in accordance with the diminution of the suffering aggregates. The future time has no stoppage but flows on ad infinitum. If a being does not attain nirvana, it will be born small or big in diverse forms of here or there for the entirety of future. No end can therein be found. Yes. So the if one has not terminated the craving, is supposed to get rebirth. I think we've discussed before. Where beings are born, there are 31 realms. Time to time, beings are born in heavenly realms, even in higher realms, Rupa Loka, fine material Brahma realms and immaterial Brahma realms. So it doesn't matter wherever they get their rebirths, how long they stay in their those highest pleasurable places, but still they are supposed to come back, and even they have the potential to go to the woeful realms, like animal realms and paper realms, and even the great hell, the Nira as well. So as long as you do not eliminate or eradicate the craving, the root cause, you are supposed to be born in the future with no sort of limit or something like. Therefore, a single wanderer in samsara has to face in the future unquantifiable, limitless kinds of suffering, as listed here by suffering of birth, suffering due to aging, suffering resulting from disease, suffering incumbent on death, suffering owing to sorrow, suffering resulting from lamentation, suffering due to pain, grief and despair, suffering arising from the communion with the disliked and separation from the liked. So also suffering inflicted by being unable to get what one wants. There is also no limit of the suffering that a being may undergo by birth in hell, bestial world, and realms of the unhappy ghosts. So these suffering that we've discussed before in the truth of the suffering. How large is the mass of suffering that the wayfarer, samsara, has to face? A wayfarer, which means the one who goes in the samsara, getting rebirth and death. As large would be the nirvana. How bitter is the mass of suffering the wayfarer has to face? As sweet would be nirvana. How raucous is the mass of suffering for him? As smooth would be nirvana. How horrid is the mass of suffering for him? As delightful would be nirvana. In this beginningless samsara, a person in the past has had his full share of pleasure several times in the realm as well, in this realm as well as in the Deva realms. Albeit these instances of pleasure are of no whatsoever consequence now. They are not even valued as much as dreams seen at night. Though one may come to experience worldly pleasures in the future, their fate would also be identical to those of the past. Therefore, worldly pleasures are of no essence. Per contra, the bliss of nirvana, once acquired, would forever remain immutable. The happiness and pleasure therein enjoyed would be of the greatest and the purest essence. This very nirvana of supreme delight and pure essence is being considered by some as something empty and not worthy assent, and only cling to sensual pleasure because they don't cognize the fact of suffering, dukkha. If anybody comprehends the first noble truth, that of the infusiveness of suffering is anything compounded, he will also see the beauty of the beatitude of nirvana. So, it's very important to understand the suffering. As much as you understand the suffering, you can understand the value or the importance of the nirvana or the nibbanic bliss. So we all know as Buddhists that we had millions and millions of past lives. So in those lives that we probably should have been born in almost all the realms, except the 5 realms where only anagamis are born, the pure abodes, the 5 places, Pancha Suddhavasa. That place is only for anagamis, non-returners, but the other places, all the other places, that the putujjanas who is going in the samsara is could be born in those places, and the 4 great hells as well. So in the text it says like the chattaro apaya sakageha sadisa, which means the woeful places is like once the house. No matter where we go, we're supposed to go back home like that. One is in the samsara is mostly supposed to be born or get rebirth in the woeful places, the 4 hells. The reason is most of the time they're supposed to do unwholesome activities. When you get contacted with the teachings like this, the noble teachings, only then you can mostly avoid the unwholesome behaviors. Otherwise, it would be always creating conditions, which means performing unwholesome activities to be born in the woeful places. So that's why it's very important to understand the suffering. As much as you understand the suffering, you understand the importance of the nirvana. So the 4 noble truths, before even we realize completely, before we have to learn, we have to read these texts, so then we can understand the importance, and we can improve the knowledge which can be helpful or beneficial one day to eliminate the suffering. So I think that's enough for today. The next time that we can continue, so we can discuss if there's something important that we can discuss and clarify more. And I would like to explain the last session. There was a question raised about what is 108 types of craving.
Yes,
So,
Bhante.
yes, so I was able to find out that. So yes, there are 108 types of cravings. So we know that there are 6 cravings based on our senses, and based on the objects that we experience. For an example, like Rupa Tanha, the craving to see forms, then the craving to hear, the craving to smell, the craving to taste, and craving for the tangible objects, and the craving for dhammas, like things that we contact through our mind, maybe about past and future, something like that. So then these 6 types of cravings multiplied by 3 types of craving. I think we briefly discuss about 3 types of the cravings, like kama tanha, bhava tanha, and vibhava tanha. The kama tanha is the desire for sensual pleasures, and the bhava tanha is the craving which is associated with the wrong view of eternalism. Then vibhava tanha is the craving which is associated with the wrong view called nihilism, uchcheda vada. So the 6 types of cravings is multiplied by these 3 types of craving. Then it becomes 18. 18. Then again it is multiplied by 2 objects, the internal and the external, ajjatta and bahira, which means it becomes 36. Then again it is multiplied by 3, which means past, present, and the future. So when the 36 is multiplied by 3, it becomes 108. Did you get that?
Yes, Bhante. Lots of merits to you. Thank you.
Yes. So that's a good question about 108 types of craving, which is also the root cause of the suffering. There are a multitude of explanation about the suffering.
Bhante, can you elaborate a little bit more what you meant by internal and external?
Yes, that there are internal objects, right? When we see ourselves, right? When we hear our own voice, like that, there are the objects is within us as well.
Okay, and then the external object.
External, yes. Other things that when we see maybe about other people or other things, both we generate craving, right? That's what the internal and external means.
Bhante, now based on what we studied today, nirvana can be explained as the absence of suffering.
Not just only absence of suffering. Yes, it's a sort of quality that there is no suffering. It's a separate ultimate reality. Right, as we've discussed in the Abhidhamma classes as well, there's an ultimate reality called nirvana. It is not just mere absence of suffering. Yes, it's a quality of nirvana. There is no suffering, but it's not merely absence of suffering.
And it also says that it doesn't have, I think the word is positional or something, which is that it is not somewhere.
Absolutely, yes. That's why it's quite difficult to understand someone. But according to these explanation, there is something called nirvana, or the ultimate reality, that we can only know through the path consciousnesses, the magga chittas, and the fruit chittas, or the phala chittas, that we can contact the nirvana, that we can experience the nirvana. Before that, that we can only have some sort of inference or something, anumana.
Bante, but the state of nirvana is the cessation of the
Craving.
chitta stream
Yes.
from samsara to samsara, but it
Yes.
is not like a place where the chitta goes to. So there is really no one on, there is nothing that gets to a destination like nirvana, is it?
Yes, in conventional terms, we can say like that, but if we really go through the teachings and for the ultimate, the teachings, it is something that we, when we eliminate the craving, the conditions is not there to arise consciousnesses again. The mind stream is stop.
So the stream,
Yes.
one stream has stopped propagating.
Yes.
Continuing.
Yes. And we have to keep it in our mind that there are some other two occasions that someone can stop or seize the mind temporarily. For example, when someone get a rebirth in asanya satta Brahma realm, where there is no consciousness. So in that occasion that they can stop, someone can stop the consciousness stream, the mind stream. And when someone, after attaining arahanthood or anagami, they can also enter sort of meditative state called nirodha samapatti. So in that situation also the mind stream stops. Then when someone demise after attaining nirvana, there is also no more the consciousness after the final chitta, final consciousness, chuti chitta.
So Bhante, is it like, I'm trying to understand it further. So it is really what we are saying is, it's not that you achieve something, but it's the lack of achieving another chitta parampara or the propagation of that chitta at the point of arahant demise. What happens is that there is this absence of it continuing, and that is what we refer to as nirvana.
Yes, it is also one explanation, as we've learned in Ratana Sutra as well, as flame extinguish.
Yes.
Yeah, that we can't find where it goes.
Yeah, because sometimes we refer to nirvana as if it is a destination, but it is not a destination, is it? It's really challenging to comprehend it fully.
Yes, though we are not quite familiar about that, but still it is to be experienced, right? It is, for example, like, can you ever teach someone how salt tastes? You can't teach that. So something like nirvana is also that we can't say some sort of facts, what happens there and how we can achieve there, but you can't fully grasp how or what nirvana is like. But we can have some confidence based on the Buddha and his comprehension.
Certainly.
Yes, so based on that, we can work on it. Otherwise, if we wait to for proofs or something.
No, yeah, it's not proof. It's trying to understand, because.
But if we deeply think about these teachings, I mean, it makes sense how we can reach there or something like that.
But it's not we who reach there, is it, Bhante? The idea that we attain nirvana itself is a bit flawed, no?
Yes, in ultimate reality.
Yes.
Yes, in ultimate reality, yes, there are some questions someone asked whether there is a being after the Arahant demise.
Yes. Which it's not.
Which is not, and not only after the demise of Arahant, what about someone is living?
Correct.
Yes.
So there
Still,
is, yeah, the
yes.
question of, so in convention, when we talk of a person attaining nirvana, but in reality,
I think there is no one to attain nirvana.
yes, please,
Yes.
that's clear, Abhante. Thank
Yes,
you.
that's why someone has to have this understanding about these two truths, right? This ultimate reality and the conventional reality. In conventional forms that we can say, yes, we wish to attain nirvana, yes. But
in
even
ultimate sense, you have to understand it in terms of ultimate realities.
Ultimate reality, yes. There is no being even before attaining Arahant.
Yes.
But there are some factors that we can be deceived as beings. That has happened to us. There is something within us that have some characteristic of that we can take as beings, right? That's what we learn as the panchaskandhas or aggregates and these ultimate realities. They appear as something
tangible and we call ourselves. Yes.
Ourselves and sort of like souls or cells.
Yeah.
Right. There are some characteristics of these ultimate realities that someone can get, I would say, like deceived.
Deceived, yes.
Yes. So as long as we understand the true ultimate, the true natures, which are the anicca, the impermanence, and the suffering, and the non-self, the anatta. These are the true the characteristics that we all are supposed to understand. When you understand that, which means when you fully understand that with the inside knowledge as the vidarshana jnana, that we can terminate the root causes of the suffering, which means the nirvana.
And I was reflecting that it's quite strange, or because when a child is born, we spend all of the childhood of a person reinforcing the concept of that the child is someone, and we give it all sorts of identities. We teach the child a lot about the child's self, so we reinforce for the large part the convention of self.
Yes, it should be in that way, Mahendra, because if we look at the most of the teachings of for an example, like the Mahamangala Sutta, it explains like asevanacha balanam, do not associate fools.
Yes, exactly.
Associate, the Satpuris, the good people. Yes, that we should not mix with these two. Yeah, right? Because we have to based on the conventional realities.
Yes, but then we get so tied up and caught up in the conventional reality.
Yes, it's a
that
different
becomes
thing.
like the ultimate reality, and you
you
live in that you sort of wallow in that mud which you have created for yourself.
Yes, someone can say like that, but still you have to stand on that. The
Yes,
ultimate,
because otherwise,
yes,
it's not possible to live a life.
Live a life, yes, and you have to fulfill your responsibilities, maybe towards your parents, children, and society, and everything is based on that. But understanding is what reality is something different.
So it's almost like one has to be aware of two separate worlds that one is migrating through.
Absolutely. But in order to do that, you have to come across with the teachings.
Yes, of course. Otherwise, you will not be aware of it at all.
Aware of it, and we never understand what's really going on.
Thank you, Bhante. It's very helpful to reflect upon these things.
Yes, I tried my best to explain.
No,
Yes,
it
and
requires a great deal of thought and contemplation.
yes, and the discussion and having questions is also very important. And when we discuss these things, the understanding or something that even we never thought of come to our mind. So
sorry.
yes.
Avasarai Bhante, is it
Yes.
the grasping factor when it comes to, for example, parents, children, etc.? We are so attached, in sense like we are grasping that's my child or so and so forth, and trying to do our duties.
The thing is here, or especially for a layman, that you have to understand the true nature of what you experience, or even to children or spouses or parents, that you have to understand the true nature. It, in some other sutras, it explains like you have to understand like adinava dassavi. You have to understand the consequences of the strong attachment. And you have to understand that no one is in your control. No matter how much you love or how much you care. And you have to think one day that you're supposed to leave them. Nissarana panyo. Something like that understanding that you have to develop. Unless otherwise that, yes, there is that you probably develop strong attachments and cravings, which is pretty dangerous.
Yes.
Yes. So the understanding, when you understand these teachings, you can reduce that sort of strong attachments. The thing that the Buddha has taught us in many sutras, to do the duties and the responsibilities. Yes, it's difficult, but
it's a delicate balance, isn't it, Bhante?
yes, you have to have some pretty good understanding.
Reminding.
Yes. Yes, the difference between duty, responsibility, and grasping and trying to make it your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the hard thing for a parent, I think.
I mean, for anybody. As parents is quite true, because they have very strong bond with children. That's normal according to the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha has,
and that sense of responsibility, Bhante, probably goes beyond what is sensible even, just because you think it's your child, and therefore there is this strong sense of responsibility, which I suppose can lead them to this grasping and clinging and all that sort of thing. So try and figure out that right balance is.
Yes, but that's why the understanding about the teachings comes as very important. Yes, anyone could get the responsibilities and provide what they want, but still they need to have this understanding.
Without getting attached too much.
Yes. At least reduce the attachment. Yes, it's not quite easy for worldly people, but if someone tries to learn and practice the teachings, it can be helpful, very helpful.
You have to come up with
No, sorry, better go ahead.
No, sorry, you go ahead.
Bhante, like personally, I have sort of learned from this stanza in Dhammapada, Putta Matti Dhanam Matti. I have, and that keep on reminding the meaning of that stanza has helped me along the years. Like personally, I guess.
Yeah. There are many discourses that you can reflect, which is helpful you to, or anybody to reduce those strong attachments. Mahendra, did you try to say something before?
I was trying to sort of reflect on whether looking at the relationship from a standpoint of a duty of a parent to a child rather than the child belonging to you might help to maybe see things in a proper light.
Yes, that's also a good way of thinking.
A difficult journey, Bhante.
Of course. This is the most difficult thing, to go against the stream. And something that we haven't practiced well before.
Thanks to you, Bhante, we are practicing at least a little now.
Yes, and this, at least, trying to learn these things is going to be very helpful us to one day to achieve our goal, I guess.
Certainly, Bhante.
Yes. Okay, then if there's no more questions, that we can wind up our session today.
Yes.
Lots of thanks to you, Bhante.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we are going to stop our Dhamma discussion today, Dhamma session. So today, by discussing this noble Dhamma at our strengths, that we generated enormous amounts of false thoughts. So let's transfer these merits to the departed ones. Idammi ñāti nang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo. Idammi ñāti nang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo. Dhammi ñāti nang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo. Let's transfer merits to the devas as well. Etthavatacha amhehi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Etthavatacha amhehi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Tavatacha amhehi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhyam. May the merits that we've generated now lead us to supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Teruvan saranai.
Teruvan saranai.